stuff here for the integrated water
I'll do that
cooling.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
sure.
good.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. So go on this next article. It's from I found it on Tom's Hardware, and it's talking about TSMC. It's one of the manufacturers for superconductors or chips. One of the big manufacturers for chips worldwide, and so when we're talking about chip shortages, TSMC would come up if you kind of follow the supply chain all the way up. But this actually doesn't particularly talk about that in and of itself. It's actually talking about what they're exploring for new designs in the future, which I thought was kind of cool and interesting, and I'll maybe share with you guys too. So, if you know a little bit about how computers work, if you were to maybe build your own computer, you would have a motherboard, and then you would put a lot of things on the motherboard. But one of the things you put on was that flat kind of wafer computer chip on in a socket, and it'd be flat. And one of the things you need to do when a lot of electricity is running through your computer, it's going to put off quite a bit of heat, and you need to dissipate that heat to make sure no bad things happen in your machine. The least of which it could throttle to just it would throttle and kind of slow itself down to make itself uh, to survive. But one of the things you can do is do air cooling, right? So many machines have air cooling, but you can also do water cooling. And in this case, we're talking about water cooling. And if you were to need to do water cool this chip, in this case, you would need to have some kind of surface right on sitting on top in contact with that computer chip
Hmm.
to really to dissipate that heat and some kind of liquid, and there's various things you can do with that. But what you can see there is there's a chip on a board, and then it's now got this cooling attachment on top of it.
Hmm.
This whole article talks about how TSMC in their different designs of computer chips, as computer chips get smaller but also more stacked, there's more things going on this chip, um, that there's more layers, and the fact that it's easier for heat to dissipate out the top than that layer that's actually touching the cooling part,
Hmm.
but everything on the bottom isn't getting cooled as well, and also all the parts that are on the top in near the cooling pad are also having all that heat from below have to go through them too as well. So it's just not, as things get thicker and more dense, the cooling just isn't as effective as they would like. So they were trying out a bunch of different designs. And if you go down through here, you'll see that they tried a bunch of different things. One of which was actually seeing if they could maybe make little channels in the silicone itself or the layers right on top of the actual
Wow.
all the part of the chips,
Hmm.
and be able to run some kind of non-conductive fluid through there to do the cooling.
Right.
And so I thought it was just a cool thing to kind of really touch on the whole bunch of things you can read about all the process here. But just skimming it through, they did a bunch of different designs, and the most effective one they found was the one with these little like pillars.
Right.
So and if you show the diagram, yeah,
I got
there
the
you go. That
diagram. I got a
diagram makes
couple
it
of
a bit
diagrams
more,
going.
yeah.
Yep.
So I won't go into too much of it. I mean, there's a whole bunch of thing you can read about what components they're using and what actual degrees and the delta of temperature change and all that. That's in here.
Right.
But I thought it was kind of cool to think in the future that we would have integrated fluid or liquid cooling on chip at some point in the future. And
I
and this
think.
isn't happening anytime soon, but it's super cool, I think.
Oh,
I mean,
it'll
uh,
happen sooner than you think.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So and what that'll let us do, if you're into overclocking or anybody out there is into overclocking, let you pump up the voltage and get higher speeds out of these things without melting them down. So more cooling is better.
More cooling is better, but I mean, forget
And
about
yeah,
that.
I thought it was cool. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but think about this as far as small liquid cooling units for small microprocessors and cell phones, cars,
Mm-hmm.
places where
Mm-hmm.
there's eminent heat. One of the things I hated about the cockpit of the Embraer 145 was you had massive CRTs, and on a good day there was 112 to 120-degree air pumping out of the back of the
Mm-hmm.
the cockpit. Just sitting there just behind the instrument cluster, the fans would circulate some of that air sometimes, and it would be hotter than you could even imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
I to me, I just keep thinking of that everything you see in today's marketplace that's so big, like your PC being water cooled, mine is water cooled, yours is water cooled.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Kraken on mine, which is nice. Enjoy it. Does a great job on my i9, even though I don't overclock very much, but it works, really well. But I imagine this is all going to trickle down into the average consumer's hands at some point, and they're always going to try to make it smaller. So for at that level, I think, hey, oh man, they're the
Yep.
next Steam Deck will probably be water cooled.
Yep. Yeah. As they get as technology gets better, things will get smaller and be more energy efficient. So and they've already seen a lot of things in mobile devices where you have surprisingly fast chips in mobile devices. And then, but they do tend to get a bit warm, and ironically, if you go out there is a number of custom designed water-cooled phones for gaming.
Oh yeah.
I've seen some of those. They're fascinating to just kind of read about. Nothing that'd be too practical, right? But nevertheless, a way to do these more efficient cooling on chip again leads you to be able to pump more energy through there and get faster performance with at least the same temperatures, let's call them.
Right.
If you put more energy through them. So, but yeah, you could. It'll be cool to see what they do with this stuff.
You know, it's funny because Linus always buys some stuff off of Wish. If you guys pay attention, Linus Tech Tips and stuff like that, and they have been liquid cooling some of the strangest stuff, and they always just try out like these $15 cooling systems, and they're like, some are garbage and some are awesome. So it's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay.